Welcome to Legal and Lucrative, an interview series from CFO Accounting Services. In each episode, we sit down with attorneys to talk about the real side of running and growing a law practice. The people, the challenges, and the decisions that don't always show up on a balance sheet. We'll explore leadership, balance, and the financial realities of firm ownership, and share practical insights to help attorneys build practices that are both successful and sustainable.
First of all, I want to thank you for agreeing to meet up with me quickly. I want to be very mindful of your time. I have 7 questions that just we're interviewing attorneys on just kind of being an attorney and a business owner and how that all fits together. So doing some research on that to get some data to see how we can help the more law firms in the business side of things, because hear a lot that they just don't teach that in law school. So question number 1, what inspired you to start your own practice, and what surprised you most about running a firm?
That is a great question. I think that when you start out as a lawyer, we have been missold through film and television programs that all you need to do is wear a sharp suit and have a briefcase and work in a shiny office and you've made it. And I think that starting your own practice or being a business owner isn't something that a lot of law students can envisage. But when you actually get into the practice of it and you realize it's not all sharp suits and shiny buildings, and that you actually need to be managing your income, your profit, all of those sorts of things if you want the shiny office and the sharp suits, then you start to realize that actually there is a side of the business that you need to get to grips with. So I think when I was asked to join my partnership here, it was a real eye-opener because I'd never been involved in running a business before. I just thought that a lot of it happened, but actually having to get to grips with profit and loss and income, turnover, all that kind of thing, it was really eye-opening. And the more I got to grips with it, the more of that side of my practice really started to interest me. It's the why, isn't it? It's why are we doing what we're doing? It's not just to give good advice, to show how smart you are and use your degree and all that kind of thing. It's actually to make a real difference, not only to your clients, but to the people that you're employing, and give those people a platform to grow their careers, to have their best possible career with you, and to be able to provide for that is really, really important. So it's not something that I ever thought would happen to me, something that I set out to do, but actually I find that is the most interesting side of my practice now, is the running of the business.
That's interesting. So how do you balance being both a lawyer and a business owner, even managing clients, your team, and your personal life?
I don't think I get the balance right. I think anybody who says that they get the balance right is lying. But I think once you become a business owner, that is underlying everything that you do. So it's forming all the decisions that you make, and that is got to be your guiding light. So dealing with clients, obviously want to provide best possible service, but it's on the basis that it works for the business for you to be doing that. It's the kind of clients that you want to be working with. You can do it in a way that is cost effective to them, but profitable to the business. It's the kind of work that will keep your people interested. So that means that they want to stay with you and provide them with good experience. Again, want to stay with you. And I think that if you really enjoy the running the business and the law practice, then I think that it kind of feeds into your personal life, in that there's no real switching off. If you enjoy those sides, then your downtime is not necessarily completely divided. So for example, I've got a young family, life is chaotic, but in my quiet moments, I enjoy thinking about what's the next steps in the business. Whereas I feel like if I was employed and I wasn't running a business, I would find that quite stressful. I'd find it stressful thinking about the work and trying to manage my own personal life, whereas as an owner, there's a real investment in it. When I get the quiet moments, that's when the best ideas for the business come.
Makes sense. Okay. When you think about growth, what's your main focus right now?
It's increasing turnover, so the income coming in, because, and I'm sure it's fairly similar in any economy, cost is going up all the time. There's very little that we can do to cut further costs in our business. Supplies, all that kind of stuff's going up. Our staff want their wages to go up, they want their bonuses, and the only way that we can continue to meet that is if we're bringing in more income. So profitability obviously is really important, but where we can't cut costs any further, it's got to be the income and how much we're bringing into the business. So we've got a real drive to increase that substantially in the next 3 years and focus on how we're going to be able to do that.
So what has been your biggest financial challenge as a firm owner, and how have you tried to tackle it?
That's a great question. I think a lot of business owners, law firm owners coming out of the pandemic have seen a sea change in the way that they run their businesses. Pre-pandemic times, we are based 20 minutes outside of London. And before the pandemic, there was no such thing as hybrid working. Nobody worked from home. Everybody traveled in the city to do their jobs. And one of our unique selling points, being 20 minutes outside London, is you don't have to do that commute. You don't have to get on a train every day. We will offer you the kind of work-life balance that didn't exist in a big city job. And then we had the pandemic and everybody worked from home. And people realized that actually I can 2-3 hours outside of London and still do a job in London and get paid London wages to do that. And so one of our unique selling points was no longer there. So it's sort of, how do we now recruit and retain people to be with us when one of our biggest selling points is no longer there because of the way that technology has changed and the way that working culture has changed after the pandemic. So I think definitely recruitment and retention is a real issue, I think, for any law firm that is outside of one of the big cities, because we simply cannot compete with those kind of wages. So what are we offering that is different? And we're constantly having to ask ourselves that question and change and innovate all the time to attract people and to keep people from going into London.
But we have seen, this is sort of a side note, we have seen a lot more law firms and companies in general switching and going back to making people come back to an office, even 3 or 4 days a week. Are you not seeing that yet?
Not as much. The US-owned firms are. The law firms, the US-owned law firms and US banks are getting people to come in. I think it's a bit slower. I think there's a real resistance in the UK about coming back into the office. So we haven't seen that yet, but no doubt if it's happening on your side, it'll follow across.
Yeah, and I would say, especially within the last year, I
Really.
just realized that the collaboration and there's plus and minuses on both sides.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we've seen a lot more saying no, at least
Okay.
3-4 days a week you have to be on site.
Wow.
I don't know.
Okay.
So you might
So
get a little bit of your edge back. I was also virtual pre-pandemic. So I was like,
Wow.
I was already in this space. Leave me alone.
Yes.
Go away.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. How do you make important business decisions? Like, do you rely on your data, your intuition, advice from others, or something completely? Explain that a little bit.
Yeah. So I've got 12 partners. So we're
Okay.
quite sizable,
Mhm.
and it's not one person making the decision, it's all of us together, which brings its own challenges. What is helpful is you're getting a number of insights from people with varying experience. We have partners who are sort of coming to the end of their career, and we have much younger partners. So it's interesting to get the perspective across the board. And we also have advisors. We have our finance team, we have our practice support team giving us all the kind of data that we need. But it is, I personally am quite decisive, and I think I'm a litigator. I'm used to making decisions quickly. I'm used to making them strategically, which is, okay, this is the data. What am I feeling about this, and get on with it? But a lot of my partners aren't like that. So decision making can get held up because we've got a lot of voices and we are all equal in terms of our voices. It's not one person who's just making the decision. So I think, to your point about how do I make decisions, I make it very differently to how my partners make it. So I can get things through quicker in my own team when I'm making decisions, but it takes much longer in the partnership, and that in itself is a challenge. So I can see an argument for a smaller firm where there are fewer partners. The decision making is potentially much quicker, whereas with my size partnership, it can take quite a while to get everybody on board.
That makes sense. So looking back, what's one thing you wish you'd understood about the business side of running a firm earlier?
I wish somebody had told me to take maths when I was at school and when I was at university, and pay attention in accounting and maths, because I think a lot of lawyers sold the dream of, I'm good at reading, I'm good at English, I'm good at speaking, so I'll become a lawyer. And they don't realize how much math and accounting is involved in running a business. So I would say, had I known, I might not have ended up in this career. But it's something that I have to grapple with daily. So I think that was a real shock. And I think it's a real shock for a lot of lawyers to realize how much math and accounting is involved in the practice of law.
Makes sense. So last question, what would it take for you to feel fully confident about your firm's financial future and growth potential?
That's a great question. I think it would be possibly considering outside investment. And I think you will, if you look at the UK law firm market, there's a real trend for outside investment, private equity, mergers and acquisitions. I think there was a headline in our legal press last week that said 2 out of 3 medium-sized law firms have been approached by private equity. So there's a real trend for that at the moment. I'm not saying that we will or we won't, but I think that the feeling in the law firm owner market at the moment is exploring that kind of outside investment in order to shore up the next few years, because I think there's loads of uncertainties with technology, with AI. How's that going to impact on jobs, on the way we practice? And I think there's so much uncertainty at the moment that just understanding where the funding is going to come from is something that a lot of law firm owners are exploring at the moment.
Interesting. Well, that's all my questions. I so appreciate you doing this. It's always great
It's
answers.
lovely.
Great answers.
Lovely chatting to you as well. I've really enjoyed it.
Awesome.
Thank
Well, enjoy
you.
the rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
Yeah, thanks.
Speak
Bye.
soon. Bye.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Legal and Lucrative. A big thank you to our guest for such an honest and insightful conversation. For free tools and resources to help improve cash flow and profitability, head over to www.cfoaccountingservices.com. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. We'll see you next time.